So in order to confirm the location information for your TDMA site, the first thing you're going to do is go to the drop down under Select County and pick your county. In this case, I'm going to use Bergen. Select District, which is your municipality. Choose Ramsey. So in this case, I know the site address, but not the block and lot. So I'm going to go under Location and enter my site address. You generally want to leave off the street, avenue, lane designation. And also, if you have a directional part of your address, sometimes it wants you to just use the initials. Sometimes it wants you to spell out north. In this case, I know that N will work because that's how it's in the database. So I hit Submit Search. And here we go. So it brings up anything with 26 in it, North Central Avenue. So this is the one that I want. So I know that now that the block and lot is 2306, the lot is 10, and that confirms the address. And then it also confirms that the property owner is Ramsey. If you know the block and lot, but not the street address, you do the same way. You choose your county, you choose your municipality. Or this time you go down to block, which in this case I know is now 2306. And then the lot is 10. And I'm going to hit Submit Search. And once again, it confirms the block and lot and confirms the address. Now, this is the address that you would want to use on the TDMA form because it matches up with the block and lot. So in order to confirm the location, so in order to get approximate site measurements, I usually use Google Maps. So you enter the address of the site there, and you'll get your map coming up here. So the first thing I do is I click to satellite view, which is down here, so you can get a better visual. I close the side panel, zoom in a little bit, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put your cursor on the area where your TDMA is going to be located, and you're going to right click, go down to measure distance, and then you'll get this little dot. And you left click to expand it, and then you can just click and drag the beginning and end points of each dot. So you'll see here it's about 214 feet wide there. Around, so it's about 158 here. And then 416 there. So once you're done taking all your measurements, close that out. You can also, if you need to start over, you can just click on it again and just move things around. So that's how you'll get your measurements. So this is a good example of a TDMA site drawing. So you've already taken the measurements of your site, so you should have a general idea of what size stockpiles will fit. And most of that is just like putting together a puzzle. You play with the sizes that you need until you are able to fit all the types of debris that you want to store on the site. So the first thing you want to make sure is that your stockpile sizes are drawn to scale. It doesn't have to be exact, but you don't want to put 4 100 by 100 foot stockpiles on an area where the site is only 50 feet by 50 feet. So just make sure it's reasonably to scale. Want to make sure that these stockpiles are going to be located on the right surface. And most importantly, you're going to want to make sure that whatever you put on the site drawing matches up with what you put on the form. And this is why I suggest you do the site drawing first and then go back and put all this information onto the TDMA form. So most importantly, each individual stockpile must be labeled with the type of debris and the dimensions. And as you can see, there's a little bit of space in between each stockpile. That's usually a fire code issue, so we like to see at least 10 feet in between each stockpile. So you want to include the traffic flow through the TDMA area. So that's depicted by the black arrows here. And if you look down in this little narrative part, there's also a note that says trucks will back into the area to offload debris, and that's perfectly acceptable. So you also want to add in any storm inlets that are on the site. So that's done right here. You also want to include if there are any gates or fencing around the property. Now, stormwater controls, such as hay bales or silt fencing, are always going to be required at a TDMA, and that will be written up in the approval. But you also can make it easy. You don't necessarily have to show it on the map, but you can do like what Clark did here and just say stormwater controls to be installed as needed. Your TDMA site drawing should also be labeled with a title. At the very least, it should have your municipality name and maybe the address, block and lot, and the date it was drawn up. As you can see, this one was done on the computer, but if you want to print out a Google map and hand draw all these stockpiles on there, that would be fine as well. If you're using containers, draw a rectangle that's roughly the container size and just label it with the size of the container in cubic yards. This is the TDMA pre-approval request form. It's available on our website, and it's a fillable PDF. So what you're going to do when you fill it out, the first part is somewhat self-explanatory. You're going to put your municipality name here, the mailing address, municipality, zip code. Now, here's a primary contact. This is the person that should be in charge of answering any questions that I may have about the TDMA application. It's also the person that we are going to send any notification emails to. So make sure you're putting the right contact person in here. So you're going to put name, title, office, fax, and cell phone number. If you don't have a fax number anymore, that's fine. Just leave it blank. Put in the email address. Now here's where you're going to put the TDMA location. The site name, if there's a local name, like Perry Street Park or something like that, put that in here. You're going to use the street address that you got when you did your property ownership search. That's going to go here, county, and then the block and lots on which the TDMA is going to be located. If it's only on one block and lot, that's fine. If there are multiple blocks and lots in the TDMA area, you need to include all of them, and that should include any entrances, exits, all the locations where you're going to put your stockpiles and or containers. Current use of the site, just a generic description, community park, sometimes it's a DPW yard, just something so I have an idea of what type of facility it is. So here, going to verify whether or not the property is owned by the municipality. So in this case, we'll say yes. If for some reason it's not, you'll check no, and you'll have to list the property owner here and attach a copy of the written agreement authorizing the municipality to use the site. Now here's where will other government entities be permitted to use the site. Sometimes two municipalities band together and one obtains the TDMA approval, but they may allow other adjacent municipalities to use it. That's fairly unusual. So in this case, we'll click no, but if there are other municipalities that you're going to allow to use the site, you would list them here. And once again, you would need some sort of a shared service agreement. Here, I want to see what type of security measure you're going to propose to keep people out of the TDMA. Anything here, you know, fencing and locked. That's usually fine. We just need something there. So now we're going to page down to page 2. It's easy to overlook this question, so make sure you fill it in. Describe measures to control dust emissions. Even if you're on a paved surface, sometimes when you're loading and unloading all types of debris, there could be a dust issue. Most people use, hosing with water truck as necessary, but you can use whatever works for you. So here's the part where you're going to include all your storage areas. So you're just there's a section for each type of debris. So you're only going to fill in the ones for which you are storing. So if you're going to be processing, that means chipping, shredding, mulching your vegetative debris on site, you would need to click yes. And so here you would list how many stockpiles you're going to have for unprocessed vegetative waste. So let's just say 2, and each one is going to be 100 by 100 by 25. And one of the things I need to mention is that vegetative debris piles cannot be any larger than 250 feet by 100 feet by 25 feet. So you're going to have 2 unprocessed piles, and let's just say 1 processed. That's going to just be 50 by 25. And stockpiles are going to be located on, say, asphalt. And you would put in the appropriate surface here. Now, if you're going to have more than one stockpile and your stockpile sizes are going to be different, I'll show you at the end where you would list the additional stockpiles. So what I usually do is put like 2 stockpiles and then just put like a little asterisk or something to denote that I need to look at the bottom of the form to see all the stockpile sizes listed. So then you're just going to go through and fill these out accordingly. I'm not going to do every single one, but if you're going to store C and D in a container, instead you would click off yes and then put the type of the container, number of the container, and the size. So if you're not storing bulky solid waste, you don't have to enter anything here. Just go through and put in all the appropriate information here. Make sure that what you're entering here is the same as what's already on your site drawing. As I discussed in my previous presentation, household hazardous waste, e-waste, and municipal solid waste must all be stored in containers, so there's no stockpile option there. So here it's just noting you need to submit your site drawing with this form. We also need current site photographs, and that is just for documentation of the current conditions, so we can make sure that if you use it, it gets restored to its original condition. And also we just want to verify that the site that you're using, get a little bit more detail as to, the services there and the site conditions. And just enter the date that the pictures were taken here. That just lists, all the technical reviews we're going to do. Page down, and here's the certifications. The first one can be signed by, mayor, public works supervisor, your local OEM, anyone with authority who's going to take responsibility for the content of this application. Local fire official is going to sign here. Make sure it's your fire official and not your fire chief. Sometimes they are the same person, sometimes they're not. And then you're going to have somebody from the county office of emergency management sign this. Usually the way it has been working with most counties is that once you finish filling out the form, you would email this form and the attachments over to your OEM person at the county, and they would sign it and then scan it and send it back to you. So here's where I talked about adding in additional stockpiles. So let's say if you're doing let's say 2 stockpiles, 125, and then let's say the other one is going to be 100, 75, 25. That's all you need to do, just to clarify it. And that's how you fill out the form. Now here's some helpful links. Here are the links that I mentioned in this presentation. The first one is for the property ownership. The second is Google Maps. And the third one I didn't discuss, but if you have someone in your office, whether it's you or somebody else that's a little bit savvy with the GIS system, you can actually pre-screen your TDMA area to see if there's any obvious environmentally sensitive areas in there. So I just provided that in case you'd like to use it. That concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at brady.montozzi@dep.nj.gov, and that's spelled Brady, BRADI.Montozzi, MONTOZZI @dep.nj.gov. Thank you very much.